After reading this chapter, you cannot convince me of two things. One, that Shanks is probably the most broken character in this series. I don't care. Shanks is definitely top five, right? And I think top five is being very like I'm lowballing it, right? And the second thing, because of how strong Shanks is, I don't care who you think is stronger, but this also like puts Mihawk on like a hierarchy because of the fact that Shanks got famous because he fought with Mihawk, or well, fought against him. So the fact that Shanks is on this level means I don't care if you think Mihawk's stronger or Shanks stronger, but whichever order you have them in, they're one and two. So you can't have one like ranked number one and the other one not ranked number two. Like if you think they're three, like Shanks is three, you can't have Mihawk any lower than number four. It's actually insane. But we're gonna get into chapter 1055. It is titled New Age, so let's talk about it. The chapter starts off with the Scabbers, Yamato, and Momonosuke still going against Admiral Kugyu. And basically what's happening is Momo, he's still telling Yamato to back off, and she doesn't understand why, but he explains later. And then Admiral Kugyu, he gets hit by a Nimpo technique, which has something to do with fire. However, he's like, well, at first he's like, oh, it burns, but he's like, I'm joking. For me to be an admiral, having fire as a weakness, I understand that, but it would be a disgrace for me not to know and conquer my weaknesses. So he's like, the fire's like nothing, and then he stabs Raizo, and Raizo's sitting up here getting his life sucked out of him. Admiral Kugyu has that tongue twister 3000 Ash Cash special, because this man, the face Raizo made, it was like he was getting his soul snatched. And then all the other scabbers are like, yo, what are we supposed to do? The only thing we can really do is crowd control by just constantly cutting away like at his plants. And so they get snatched up too. I think Kawamatsu got snatched, Nekomamushi and Dendro, they all get snatched, and they're going through it during this fight because they fought against Kaido, so obviously they're not weak, but they also weren't strong enough to defeat Kaido, and Kaido dealt with him fairly easily when he got serious. And I'm not saying that Admiral Kugyu, he's stronger than Kaido, but he's somewhere, like, in terms of strength, he's anywhere between, like, where Kaido's at, Luffy's at, and probably, like, Big Mom, all of them. Like, he's probably, like, top 12 strongest in the verse. So the fact that they decided to challenge him is actually insane. Then we cut to Law, Nico Robin, and Odin's father. I don't remember his name, I apologize, but I find it funny because his father's like, yo, Law, why did you like sniff us out? And he said, well, I noticed you two weren't at the party, so I'm not like a hyena or anything, y'all just are making it blatantly obvious. And so they're walking down a passage and they're like, yo, so this is the passage that leads to the road poneglyphs and a little bit more information that we learn about Pluton. And so he's like, I was able to keep this passage hidden from Kaido, however, because Jack's a fishman, that he was able to figure this out. And I'm like, okay, because eventually it explained it has something to do with water, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But I was like, well, even though Jack's a fishman, he still ate a devil fruit. And even though you're a fishman, we learned with, I think his name was Vanderdecken, that even though you're a fishman, if you've eaten a devil fruit, that you lose your ability to swim. And so devil fruit abilities get nullified, and not just in seawater, it's all types of water. Hence why in the bathhouse, Nico Robin does not take a bath with everybody else like that, out in the open at least, because she doesn't want to be defenseless. So I find it funny, maybe that because Jack and Kaido and all of them, they've had Wano for 20 years, so maybe he found this before he ate the devil fruit. I don't know, but if not, that's a little bit of a sketchy plot point. And also, Law and Nico Robin, they had a funny interaction. Basically, like, because Robin's a big woman. I think she's like 6'3". So, and Law, he's pretty I think Law's like 6'6". So, they're sitting here, Nico Robin's like crawling through this little crevice, this tiny little area. And all of a sudden, Law, he's like his room in shambles in order to like pop up right next to her. And Nico Robin, she has some dry humor. But this one was funny. And like when Law popped up next to her, he looked at her. They looked at each other. She was like, she said, that's not fair. Like, what are you doing? I just found that interaction hilarious. The image that they're looking at is of a older Wano, right? So apparently Wano was submerged underwater, because we know Wano has all these walls that, you know, block it from the outside world, and that's, you know, the tides, and Wano, it's hard to access. But 800 years ago the walls weren't there, but suddenly they appear. And so whenever it rained, obviously, if you look at, like, that's like, for instance, you take a tub, right? And like you get rid of the sides or whatever, the water's going to freely be able to flow through. But if you have the sides up of like a box or a tub, whatever's in that tub, eventually, like whenever it rains, the water is going to just stay in there. And so that's the current Wano. So the people of Wano, they had to, well, that was the previous Wano. The current Wano, the people, they had to move upwards in higher elevation above the walls, so they're going to be submerged in the water. And so they climbed up Mount Fuji, and that's why Wano, the flower capital, Curie, and all of that is where they're at now. So, you know, the submerged Wano, that means they had so much more land accessible to them. Then this is where we learn more about, number one, the road poneglyph, and number two, Pluton. When you look at it, you know, they finally have a third road poneglyph. So they got the one in Zhao, they got the one at Big Mom's castle, and now they have the one in Wano. And so after this, we learn more about Pluton, the ancient weapon. Apparently the term opening up the land of Wano means basically releasing Pluton. And so the reason why that they don't want to necessarily open up the country, because it requires them to remove the surrounding walls, and so that would lesser Wano's defenses, obviously, because if you open up and unleash an ancient weapon, you know, it's obviously going to make your defense more weak. And so they're like, well, okay, you know, why would Kazuki Oden, you know, want to open up the walls, right? There was the whole conversation with Zanisha and Momo talking about not opening walls, etc. And so Oden's father is like, basically, Oden, you know, he traveled with the Pirate King. He knows the secret of the world. So obviously there's a reason why he wants to open up the walls and release Pluton. And more likely not, this is going to happen sometime during the final war. This may have to deal with like getting rid of the red line, maybe with Emu, maybe with the Gorosei, we don't know, but the Pluton will be put into action sometime towards the end of the series. We cut back to the Scabbers and the Admiral. Basically, he's like, you know, I understand that you guys had to deal with, you know, all the tyranny and Kaido ruling over you guys, but he kind of did you guys a favor, because number one, y'all aren't backed by the world government, so nobody else would come in trying to oppose Kaido because of how much he reigns supreme. And so, you know, Momo, he's talking to Yama. He's like, yo, I don't want you to fight because you're finally free. You were a prisoner for 20 years. And the fact that, you know, you're about to go leave with Luffy, Zoro, and the others, it's not right for us to have to keep relying on y'all. Y'all are free to do whatever you want. And so whenever y'all leave, you know, we have to be able to take this country for ourselves and be able to fight for ourselves, because if we can't, it would appear that Wano is not truly free and that they didn't keep their promise, which isn't true, because they defeated Kaido, defeated Orochi, etc. And so this allows Momo to finally get a blast breath out, and he attacks Admiral Kugyu. He does a couple barrages with the blast breath, and so it's, you know, leaving heavy damage, because the blast breath is, you know, it's not equal to what Kaido did, but it's on the level roughly of a Kaido blast breath. And so this makes Admiral Kugyu, he had to like plant himself in the ground in order to escape the blast breath, and he's about to attack Momo when all of a sudden we get Conquerors haki. I don't know if it's advanced. It does have the black lightning, so I'm gonna say it's advanced. We get Conquerors haki all the way from the borders of the land of Wano, the sea, and it leaves Admiral Kugyu, it leaves him shook. Like, this man's out of his Logia form and is like paralyzed. And he knows specifically who this haki's from. He's like, oh, so the red-haired pirates are here too. And so Shanks sending this all the way from there. That's why I said he's so broken. And like I said, him and Mihawk are on roughly the same level, so Mihawk can probably do this too. And so Shanks is like, does the new age or the new era, does it frighten you that much? I was like, okay, Shanks, talk your ish. Because for like Shanks to do this, and like he's like, you know, there's you know, the Scabbers, all of them, they fought against Big Mom Kaido. They're obviously not ready to fight you yet, so you're picking on people after, you know, a hard battle. So this, like, Shanks talking his talk, I'm like, okay, Shanks, we see you. The fact that you have an Admiral shook, I don't know if Shanks just showed off, puffed his chest, or the Admiral's just weak, but Shanks doing this made him Admiral Kugyu, it made him leave. And like, this just puts into perspective, and I'll probably do a Shanks Mihawk video in the future, but the fact that Luffy wants to surpass Shanks. Zoro wants to surpass Mihawk. So that means that Zoro and Luffy are going to be relative to each other in the end of the series because Mihawk and Shanks are. So the fact that it just showcased how far they'll have to achieve their conquerors haki and how far they still have to go in order to pass these guys. We also see Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Jinbei that they're together and they're like, yo, check out Momo, the admiral's gone, we ain't had to do nothing. And he's like, it's that conquerors haki. I just love this moment. Luffy and his commanders right next to each other. We have Sanji sitting on the left side, Zoro sitting on the right, and Jinbei in the back. And so Luffy's like, he's smiling. He's like, oh, this, haki is, a familiar face came to mind. And then Shanks is leaving Wano. So obviously Luffy, he's like, maybe this is Shanks or something along those lines. So I love this chapter. We learn more about Pluton. We learn more about Wano. We learn more about Yamato. She's joined the crew. We learn more about what Shanks could really do. Next chapter, we're probably going to see Zoro, visiting Ryuma's grave, maybe more about Black Blades, and probably it's going to be more Zoro history related because that's really all that's left in Wano. There's probably going to be like 1 to 3 more chapters, and this reminds me of like Black Clover. If you guys didn't know, Black Clover went on hiatus for 3 months because they were getting ready for their final arc. And so Black Clover, when they finished their war arc, the chapter that came out, it's still them dealing with like the remnants of the Spade Kingdom. So obviously they still got to wrap that up. But I just find it like good how good this chapter was because it's leading up for stuff to happen in the future. But let me know how you guys feel about chapter 1055 in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you guys never miss out on that video. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and TikTok is on the screen in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to unleash your potential.